A new year, a new page, all sorts of opportunities and possibilities. Tonight, we launch a new year of FBOMB, where great prose is celebrated and enjoyed. And my wish for all of you in the Zoom room and listening to the recording is a year filled with joy and getting your heart's desires. My name is Francine Witte. I'm here in the heart of New York City in my fake bookstore. And this is the FBOMB Global Flash Reading, January 2025. So sit back, grab a festive beverage, and get ready to enjoy our wonderful lineup of readers. Just to break the ice, I'm going to start with a real short one. This is a 100-word story. It was based on a photograph in 100-word story, and it was just a picture of a laundromat with washing machines. When Jimmy leaves me again, I throw his orphaned clothes into the washer's gaping mouth hole. I push back words it is wanting to say, oh, but he is so beautiful, and what about his soft lip kiss? Soon, the swirly twirl of Jimmy's denim shirt, his just right jeans, all bubble and scrub, are flying in a circle, the kind that reminds me of passing time. By the rinse cycle, hot and spin, and faster than thought, I think I stop hearing his goodbye whispers, and then, when I open the washer's mouth, I could swear I hear it promise it will try to forget Jimmy's name. Okay, now, let's begin with our wonderful lineup. Zvi Sesling. Zvi Sesling, Brookline, Massachusetts Poet Laureate 2017 to 2020, has published numerous poems and flash fiction. He edits 10 by 10 flash fiction stories. His latest flash fiction, 40 Stories, is co-authored with Paul Beckman. Sesling lives in Brookline, Massachusetts with his wife, Susan J. Decter. Zvi Sesling.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you all have a great creative year. So my first story is called Earrings. She cannot remember when or where she last wore the earrings. They are not diamond or gold, but it is the first gift he gave her. The earrings are what is commonly referred to as huggies. At this moment, she is very upset that she has misplaced them. The jewelry box does not hold them, nor does any drawer in her dresser. She checks her winter clothes, summer clothes, even bathing suits. No earrings. Perplexed, she decides to change her clothes and put on a different pair of earrings and hopes he will not notice. It is their anniversary and she wants to wear them for him. She selects a pair of flat black shoes, black socks, a dark red blouse, and a black jacket. She thinks, it is almost like I am in mourning for that set of earrings. She brushes her hair, thinks about putting on fresh makeup and brushing her teeth. She brushes first. Then she opens the medicine cabinet for her makeup. There on the shelf are the earrings. She almost lets out a whoop of joy, but instead manages a big smile. The second story is called Hominid. Remains have been found of yet another hominid. This one, about 5.2 million years old, reveals a couple of teeth that tell it was more ape than human. Not that it really matters, because it did not have to deal with the morning commute or pollution. Neither did it worry about terrorist bombs, greenhouse effects, gangs, or urban sprawl. It knew nothing of sexually transmitted diseases, politicians, armies, television, riots, organized religion, schools, drugs, drunks, cholesterol, diets, and other modern issues. It had simple problems such as survival. And this one is called The dead speak. Archaeologists are legal grave robbers. The dead cannot sleep knowing their souls are being stolen, their bones on display like Playboy bunnies, excuse me, to be ogled as if in a zoo of human remains. Mummies from pyramids, mouths open as if to swear at those who steal their bodies, scream silently. At night, when the museum is closed, the curators are at home plotting new exhibits from China, Japan, Africa, or Central America. The pharaohs speak to each other, and one says, "An ice cream would be good about now." Um, Gee, I didn't want to read that one. Sorry, I gotta find this thing. Oh, this one is called Speaking with God. Bob says, if you speak to God, you're considered religious. If God speaks to you, you're considered schizophrenic. But what if you do not tell anyone and just have a one-on-one dialogue? And I'm going to close out with the history of football. On the first day, the Almighty created a football field with an end zone at each end. And when he saw what he had done, he said, "This is good." On the second day, the Almighty created goalposts and stadiums for worshipers to attend. On the third day, he put stripes on the field with a number of yards from the end zone. On the fourth day, he created two combative teams, and on the fifth day, he created the forward pass. On the sixth day, he created field goals and touchdowns and coaches and referees and televisions to watch the competition between two teams and coaches and referees. On the seventh day, he sat on a couch, placed his feet on an ottoman, invented bowls of popcorn and potato chips, popped open a can of beer, burped a few times, and raised both arms and cheered for every touchdown. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zvi. That was wonderful. That was Zvi A. Sesling. Thank you for being at the FBOMB with us tonight.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Ron Bass, who is a fellow New York City-er. Ron Bass is the author of To My 25th Century Biographers, a collection of poetry and short fiction published in 2023 by Apoximetrics Press. His previous book, The Velveeta Underground, I love that title. It is a collection of longer stories and one-act plays published in 2006 as part of the EAA Signature Series. Ron Bass.
Hello, everyone. A singing bowl. Rhiannon G. first encountered what she later thought of as extraterrestrial creatures during the summer after she completed first grade. Her family was staying in their summer house in Truro. Rhiannon, never a good sleeper, snuck out to the beach after her parents and younger brother were fast asleep. That first time she saw what looked like an iridescent red and green castle wobbling rapidly across the sky and landing out beyond a sand dune off to her right. Shortly afterwards, a band of half a dozen dancing creatures playing an assortment of musical instruments came right up in front of her and bowed or curtsied, she wasn't sure which. She couldn't tell if they were male or female or a combination of the two, or whether they were adults or children. They were short. None of them were more than 4 feet tall. They looked human, but their skin had a greenish cast and their ears were slightly pointed. The one who appeared to be the leader was dressed in a white ruffled shirt, pink shorts, and green lederhosen. He doffed his sparkly purple felt cap and half sang and half spoke. Along this wicked, wicked way, no wings of dross or tails of clay will stop your ears and bind your feet. The worthies you shall shortly meet will form a circle around your soul and give to you a singing bowl that you can treasure when they've fled back to their home among the dead. Shortly after he, or at least Rhiannon thought it was a he, finished, they all instantaneously dematerialized. Rhiannon went back into the house and got into her bed. She knew that she shouldn't tell anyone about this encounter. The next day, she began singing the song which her parents thought she had written. A near-death experience. 2 weeks after his 75th birthday, Darwin Greenfield recalls his recent near-death experience and what its implications might be. He'd spent the night at Delphine's apartment. She left at 5 a.m. to go work on a film shoot. About an hour later, Darwin woke up abruptly from a dream in which he felt like he was being shaken violently, both from within and without. In the dream, he acknowledged to himself that he might be dying. While this was happening, he felt completely calm, not upset at all, almost happy. Evie Phillips, a close friend of Darwin's and his son Eugene's ex, who was a private student of the Dalai Lama, was present in the dream, evidently acting as his guide. He knew that the white light that so many near-death narratives reference was off to his right somewhere, but he made no move to seek it out. Although the thought of walking off into the white light and not coming back was tempting, he realized he couldn't do that to Delphine. He knew she would be upset if she couldn't reach him all day, and then for her to come home and find his corpse in her bed was a prospect that it was just too painful for Darwin to even contemplate. So he declined the chance to walk painlessly away from his life, fully aware that another chance might not come his way again so easily. As he summed up the situation to himself, I was dealt a get out of jail free card, and I chose not to play it. Fluxy Sings the Blues, from the notebooks of Fabio Lorenzetti, November 24th, 1983. Fluxy is a rescue dog, a mutt. 2 years ago, I went to the Animal Control Center on East 110th Street. We made eye contact and she came home with me. Fluxy's full name is Fluxy R. Mutt. Her purposefully anarchic nature led me inexorably to this name for her. One afternoon, about 6 months after her arrival, I was working on a study for Jeff Koons creating Janis Joplin, Suckling Romulus and Remus, the founding of Rome. This is a painting that comprises one of the gates of a large Tibetan-style mandala I was working on at the time. The sketch was about 90% done. There was some detail work on Jeff Koons left to finish, plus the lotus motif around the borders, that's all. The study was primarily in ochre. I had Bronzino and Goltzius in mind while I was creating it. I had just prepared some International Klein blue to do the lotus pattern in, but I hadn't applied any of it yet. Well, anyway, that afternoon I took a phone call from my dealer into the library, and I must have inadvertently closed the door on Fluxy, trapping her inside the studio. Being who she is, she knocked over the easel and my palette. Canvas landed face up on the floor. Fluxy landed in the International Klein blue and proceeded to apply it liberally to the entire canvas, using her paws as brushes. When I came back into the studio, my immediate reaction was anger that almost instantaneously turned into huge cathartic peals of laughter. As I was picking up the canvas, the phrase "Fluxy Sings the Blues" popped into my head. I knew that with no further work to be done, we just collaborated on a next gen happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I loved your presentation. That was very entertaining.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us here at the FBOMB tonight. That was Ron Bass. I'm an old fan of Ed Sullivan, and I always like to do what he did and sort of thank some of the people in the audience for being here, recognizing them, because I know you have other things you could be doing, okay? And there's some just luminaries of the Flash world and their supporters here tonight. So I want to recognize them, those who aren't reading. There's, I'm looking at all the readers here. I'm looking across here. Calliope Palios, Ron Dorman, Bernice Holtzman, Tracy Adams, Anka Siegel. Did I pronounce that right? Becky Parker, Dave Gregory, Bill Temples, Dawn Steffler. Let me go to the next page. I love going to the next page. And Michael Davis, Bill Temples, Kim Rogers, and Avidus Carl. Wonderful, wonderful people here. If I missed anybody, I will get you on the Rebop. And I want to give a very special shout out to my Aunt Miriam Mandel, who in just a mere 2.5 weeks is going to be 100 years old. So yes, and she's beautiful. So welcome to everybody. And I always like to say, you're here because you appreciate good reading and all that. And so that makes you beautiful. And you're here because you're beautiful, and you're beautiful because you're here. So thank you very, very much for your time tonight. We appreciate you. Next, we're going to hear from Ellen Weeren, who's just a dynamic force in the Flash world. So supportive. And can tell you about her Facebook page after, if she would like. Ellen Weeren's work has been published by the Saturday Evening Post, the Kenyon Review, Fractured Lit, Liars League, New York City, the Hong Kong Review, Crack the Spine, and others. Her novel in process is titled In the Dust of Elephants. She also runs Reason to Write, a writing workshop and retreat space on a craggy mountain in West Virginia. Ellen Weeren.
Thank you, Francine. I'm going to read from my first chapter of my novel in progress called In the Dust of Elephants. In Bukarana, those who believed the rumors that the elephants had returned were referred to as crazed, or worse, simple, like a rose petal shriveled by the harshness of the sun. Jai Sharma did not see himself as crazed, and he certainly was not simple. Of course, his heart twitched at the possibility of the grand beast returning, but there was just no way it could be true, or at least no way he would allow himself to lean into such childish whimsy the way his mother-in-law, Manya Mams, did. He had already relied on false hope too often, so much so that a tale of heartbreak followed him like a shadow, so permanently attached, impossible to erase. Jai was a father and a widower whose shoulders curved with responsibility, so he tended to more practical matters like feeding his children, Khair and Layla. One day, as the late afternoon sun burned a soft haze into the horizon, he sat on a riverbank trying to ignore the pain in his back so that he could tie the broken strands of his fishing net back together. Next to him, his older brother Ishan leaned back on his palms with his eyes barely open. Their workday in the farming fields had been long, but the hungry bellies of their children gave no allowances for resting. It was the end of the dry season, and the fish were smaller, making every hole in their fraying net more potent against their hope of a sufficient dinner. Confident in their abilities regardless of the water's depths, the brothers had gone quite a bit upriver to stay clear of the other village men fishing in the slightly deeper waters. Have you heard what Mr. Chowdhury is teaching our children? Ishan asked. If this is about the elephants, let it be. They are not back. Jay rubbed his tired hand across his forehead, his brother's lack of focus wearing thin. He's telling him about the rumors of circles in the sand. He said he's heard that they've been appearing in rows of 2. Has he seen them himself? Jay asked. It doesn't sound like it. It's just more foolish hope, Ishan. I'm sure those are from the turtles settling in to lay their eggs. Probably. You know that, and I know that, but my son tried to sneak out last night to find them. What does your mother-in-law say? She doesn't say anything, Jay answered. She just leaves the house for hours at a time when I need her helping me. Can we focus? Ishan nodded. Sure, he said. The heat wrapped their shoulders like a thin veil, present but not quite oppressive. Jay rubbed his forehead again, then twisted the rope around his forefinger to secure the last knot. The tip of his finger swelled and purpled. He had to yank hard to get the loop off. When a hangnail snagged on the fraying threads, he licked the spot of blood that bubbled near his nail bed, wincing at the bitter taste. With a nod, he motioned for Ishan to walk toward the shrunken stream. He picked up one end of the net and handed the other to his brother. Together they waded in the muddy river up to their calves, dragging the net behind them. Murky water swirled around their feet and cooled their toes, while mosquitoes nipped at their knees and hands and danced near the corners of their eyes. There were signs about them that, if they wanted to, they could interpret as promises of the elephant's return. Signs they had seen themselves, large swaths of tall grass flattened, palm fronds pulled from trees, and the sense of something close by. But those could be anything, Jay reminded himself. The most important evidence was missing: trumpeting noises, missing jackfruit, and most of all, the elephants themselves. With each step, the net grew heavier and more cumbersome. Jay and Isham pulled the net's ends to widen its reach and used it to encircle a patch of water hyacinth, an invasive plant that spread like bamboo and served as the perfect hiding place for fishes. As they tugged on the netting, the bulbous stems loosened and clung to the net strings. Water pushed through the small holes. Jade pulled several pieces of plant out and threw them onto the bank. If the fish continued to escape their net, they could make a hearty enough stew by boiling the hyacinths, lavender flowers, and hollow stems in a kettle of water. But they longed for something more substantial. They brought the ends of the net full circle and hauled it from the river. There was little doubt their shoulders would ache the next morning. Dajaji would have been able to lure more fish out, Jay said. Their grandfather had taught them how to fish, how to make more out of less. When they were boys, Dadaji teased them mercilessly that there was no way to tell them apart, even though he himself never failed the challenge. It was true that there were few differences between them when they were younger. They both had the dark, oily-looking hair of their father and the crooked elbows of their mother. Jay, however, had a freckle on his left eye. Isham was older, but not taller. Jay was better at school, but unfortunately, the men of Bukarana were more valued for their cleverness and cunning than school learning. After all, what good could a book do in the face of a tiger? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen Weeren. Do you want to tell us a little bit about A Reason to Write?
Sure. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have a Facebook page. I put the link in the chat called A Reason to Write. There's about 730 members. It's all writing, no politics, no selling. So we celebrate, but we don't ask people to buy anything. And it's all writers who are just looking for community. It's very supportive. I post a lot of contests and publication opportunities. Whenever I know someone has published something, I celebrate that. It's just great. That's how I met Francine. So, and we host monthly, well, almost monthly free classes. There are a lot of members in the group who teach, and so I pay them, and then everyone in A Reason to Write can attend for free. Francine did an amazing class, and Sarah Freely, Tommy Dean. There have been some really super leaders. The next one is the Submitters Club, and a woman named Mary Jean Oldham is going to do two sessions, one on kind of getting your submission submission objectives in order, and then following up a couple weeks later. And then Eric Scott Tryon is going to do a class, hopefully in February. We're working on a date. So it's great.
Wonderful. It's just such a wonderful resource. And if you can't find it for some reason, contact me. You can always find me at francinewitte.com, and I can hook you up. Okay. So, but it's a wonderful resource, and like the workshops and everything that you do is amazing, Ellen. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to give a little shout out to my friend Bill Merkley, who waited about 20 minutes in the waiting room because I didn't see his name, but that's how much he wanted to get in. So, gotta love it. Welcome, Bill Merkley. Okay, our next reader is Claudia Monpere. Wonderful Claudia Monpere. Her flash appears in Flash Boulevard, Craft, Split Lip, Smoke Long Quarterly, Tram Set, Atlas and Alice, and elsewhere. She won the 2024 New Flash Fiction Prize from New Flash Fiction Review and 2024 Refractions Genre Flash Fiction Prose from Uncharted magazine. Her story, Solar Flare, received the 2023 Smoke Long Workshop Prize, and I know that's very competitive, and appears in the Best Small Fictions 2024. Claudia Monpere.
Thank you for having me, Francine, and everybody, thank you for being here, and all you writers I've heard so far, it's just lovely to be here with you. After, and after, and after, and nothing changes, just the names of the children. This one drew birds wearing hats. That one had an orange juice popsicle for an imaginary friend. The parents cradle these chards. The communities create tributes. Favorite superheroes, favorite colors, photographs, flowers, candles. The politicians offer words and guns for teachers. Someone builds a school garden for resilience. The live children and the ghost ones plant pole beans, sugar snap peas, squash. They plant carrots and sunflowers. They watch giant yellow suns shoot to the sky. They watch tiny yellow flowers bloom, shrivel, turn to tiny cucumbers, tiny green tomatoes, turn plump, red, sun-sweet. Everything grows. The children harvest and eat. They make art in the garden, study insects, prepare salads. But it's the vines that fascinate them. Tendrils gripping, the strength of suckers, leaves, stems, far stronger than any fruit or vegetable. Long after harvest, the vines keep growing. At recess, that's where the children cluster. No hopscotch and dodgeball, no slides and monkey ball bars. Attempts are made to prune the vines, then remove them, but they only grow faster, stronger, creeping across the schoolyard and into the street. It's a long trip to Washington, D.C., and the children ride their vines, who are gentle ponies by night, swaddling the children in leaves as soft as flannel, the ghost children lullabying them to sleep. By day, the vines cheetah, the children and ghosts giggling, safe in tendrils. They vine through the gun shops, transforming steel and aluminum into whatever color the children choose. Yellow wax beans, crookneck squash, golden romanos in one shop, zucchinis and green peppers in another. The White House and Capitol building are close. The tanks and rockets are close. But see how the vines are already climbing steps, thickening, wrapping themselves around walls, ready to bloom and fruit, or do something else, whatever is necessary. And the children, the little ghosts, they're scattered across the land, composting the soil, planting seeds, waiting for the harvest. Girl locks. It's very late, the policeman insists, for a woman and a girl. His flashlight drills into our car. I am the teeth, the proof of slut darkness. He is the language of crosshatch and locks. He peers at my mother, bathed in red light. The suitcase swells and hides our shutters. 100 miles back, our Texas bungalow with sleepy white shutters. Father and brothers, no mother or girl. Sky shot with moonlight. Garage missing one car. The key slept with father, but mother got the glitchy door unlocked. We left in the skin of darkness. The laws bring their own darkness. Our bodies shudder. No man can be locked out. A girl is a woman, is a slut, is a girl, is a car, needing only maintenance, occasional starlight. The policeman forces us into barbed light. He scans my 14-year-old body and finds a spine of darkness, an illegal flight across the border in our car. To kill your baby, he shudders. My mother says, she's just a girl. But he is fond of steel locks. I dream I'm eating oatmeal with bears in buttery kitchen sunlight. They love this fragile human girl. The bears shred the darkness. They choose lemon yellow to paint our shutters. They hide me from the men in saw-scaled viper cars. In prison, there are no cars, just black ravens hovering outside of bars and strong locks. Chained to our birth beds, we cleave our shutters. Gill breathe the light. We smell the cracks in the darkness. They tell me she's a girl. A girl. I let myself unlock a breath as she takes her first. A girl, she will inside out the darkness. A girl is a thistle of light. Thank you.
Okay, we do not play here on FBOMB. That was amazing, Claudia. Really beautiful work and beautifully read. Thank you, Claudia Monpere. Next, Patricia Quintana Bidar, also a very good friend, is a writer from the Port of Los Angeles region. Her short fiction has been widely anthologized, including in Flash Fiction America, which is Norton, by the way, Best Small Fictions 2023 and 24, and the Best Microfiction 2023. Patricia's novelette, Wild Plums, ELJ Press, is available from Amazon. Her collection of short works, Pardon Me for Moonwalking, is coming in 2025 from Unsolicited Press. She serves as submissions editor and occasional interviewer for Smoke Long Quarterly. Patricia Bidar.
Thank you. Great to see everyone, and thank you very much, Francine, for inviting me today. I'm going to read two short pieces. The first was published quite recently in Leon Lit Review, which, if you're not familiar, is a really great journal, I think. It's called To the Small Suitcase Forgotten for Years, Containing Little Paul's Hawaii Things. It was their toughest year to date when Eve's husband attempted his first and only antidepressant. When Eve's job required her to fly to the East Coast for a conference and then a 2-day client meeting. When the preschool called twice about their son in the same week. Little Paul, just 3, had invented a game called Catch 'em and Kiss 'em and another called Alcoholic Dolphins. Little Paul began walking up behind seated kids and smacking them on the back of the head hard with his lovey, a stuffed bunny. Standing before Eve, who was sitting in a small chair, the preschool director asked Eve if anything was happening at home, and she'd answered, not really. The director described the way Eve's son responded tearily to being chastised. Poor thing, Eve said, picturing him so confused. This is the problem, the limbing director said. He is the one behaving inappropriately. Eve had been too drained to chastise her son on the way home, as she had promised the director she'd do. Instead, she offered him frozen yogurt with sprinkles for dinner. Her husband was working late again. Happening in the home. The weekend before, Eve's husband had left the dining room without a word and walked out the door. He'd been gone for 4 hours before he responded with a text in response to Eve's teary messages. He'd taken the highway to the 5 South and kept going. Eve pictured him, stony-eyed, fields blazing past on both sides. He's not coming back, she said aloud to herself, hunched on the toilet. It was Eve's worst fear. Then she looked up to see little Paul in the doorway with a stuffed bunny. Her husband texted again. He was on his way home. Before he returned, Eve tucked little Paul in and booked them all on a package trip to Honolulu. A change of scenery would cheer them. She still believed that with force of will, she could helm some kind of turnaround with her husband, bind them all into a loving unit. It turned out to be a cheery boutique hotel where the staff left 3 saran-wrapped rolls, and 3 Hawaiian sodas on a tray outside their door early every morning. A room so small they could barely walk around with their brand new suitcases and boogie boards lining the walls and leaning against the mattresses. Her husband swam with little Paul. Eve shopped, had her nails done. This beautiful place, even the smallness of the room, provided a closeness, a respite from their lives at home. Years later, a single empty nester cleaning the garage, Eve would come across little Paul's sweet shorts and sandals. His suitcase had never been unpacked or reused. The hope, the helplessness of those years jolted Eve then. The tiny t-shirts with chubby, colorful renderings and little sayings on them. The miniature ukulele and the dried puffer fish on a string. That unopened can of sweet passion fruit soda, too sweet for even the fat-cheeked boy who loved smoothing sunscreen on his parents' shoulders in the perfumed and velvety breeze under the muzzled sun. The next one is called If I Know Santa. Okay. I was walking down the street a few weeks ago, and right before the Christmas break, I lived very close to an elementary school, and there was a father walking his son to school. And the only thing I heard that he said to his son was, "If I know Santa," and I thought, I'm going to write something that has that, because it kind of cracked me up. If I know Santa, he's laughing down at us right now. He'd be the first to call BS on all this religious stuff. No offense. Laughter, about good times, about working hard, but also playing hard when the work was done. Anyone who partied with him in that anything goes week between Christmas and New Year's knows as much. On a serious note, Santa touched my life in ways I don't often talk about, so you can call me a boot kisser and a follower, unlike those not here today, who pulled a joint paycheck after he did work from home. Didn't see his chubby face overlooking the chilly workshop after that. Just a few of us working at that point. Lights off to save money. Heat, too. No one got written up, although production was down. I felt for him. I started bringing in leftovers for the two of us. Borscht, goulash, his favorites. An extravagance for me when he so easily could have fed us all like he used to. The day Santa died, he and I had been eating our lunch in his office, talking about girls and watching a couple pigeons that had somehow gotten in. They purred and hummed in the rafters. A pretty sound. Pretty bird if you forget everything you know about them. I said as much, and Santa guffawed, thinking I was making a crack about our ex-wives. I had my own father once upon a time. A plaza, a gazebo in downtown Los Angeles. I tried to pet every pigeon that approached. He held me to him. His golden cross shined softly through his undershirt. My daddy said, "Always be your own man." And then he said he'd see me around Christmas. Like a sucker, I believed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. That was great. Wonderful reading. Patricia Bidar, wonderful as always. Our next reader is someone I've only really known from Twitter, and I'm just delighted to really, meet him now in, well, not in real life, but in Zoom life. His name is Barlow Adams. He's a writer from the Cincinnati area. His work has been selected for Best of the Net, Best Small Fictions, and the Wigleaf Top 50. Recent work in Tramset Had and Sugar, Sugar, Salt. Barlow Adams.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to meet you virtually as well. I'm going to read a story from a CNF collection, I Am Shopping. It's called My New Doctor Asked If I've Ever Used Tobacco Products. I lie because I don't want my insurance rates to go up, because he has my family history right in front of him, where it says both my parents died of lung cancer. Because he'll look at me like I'm an idiot. Like, how could you ever do such a thing, you stupid boy? Even if he's too polite to say it, he'll make a little mark on my file, and it will feel like he's drawing an X over my entire life. Then I'll have to tell him it was for a girl, because of course it was. It wasn't so much love at first sight as deja vu, the feeling of having known someone your entire life after a few casual conversations. She smoked every night with her two friends outside my dorm. I'd never been so jealous of a cigarette in my life, so envious of ash, to glow from the touch of her lips, to fall at her feet and be completely consumed. I bought a pack at the gas station, the same kind she smoked, so I could show up one night and say, "What are the odds?" and mean, "What are the odds someone like you could love someone like me?" I'd have to tell the doctor we hit it off, that she had a boyfriend, but he was a dick, and her friends hated him. They asked me, "What the hell is wrong with men?" And I said, "We're terrible, waste of your time. You should probably all become lesbians." She was the only one of the three who didn't eventually take my advice. I'd have to tell the doctor she was a poet, because of course she was. I'd have to admit to how I went back to my room that night and smelled my pungent fingers and thought, if I could get a girl like that even once, I'd die happy. I addicted myself to her and nicotine a little more every nightly smoke session. She told me she wondered if her boyfriend was gay because he didn't seem to want to touch her, and I said, he might be going through something, but thought, he has to be. He fucking has to be. When they eventually broke up, she and I got drunk in her room. I didn't make a move because it seemed like trying to kiss the moon. So when she leaned in and put her lips on mine, it momentarily broke the tides of my mind. She fell asleep later that night, still fully clothed, wearing my baseball cap. I tiptoed out of the room with lipstick on my cheek and lunar dust on my fingertips. We dated for a week before I found out my kidneys were failing. I tried to push her away, but she wouldn't go. I sobbed like a child that night, and we tried to make love, but she was a virgin and she kept tensing up. So I made cookies in the communal kitchen and we watched cartoons. I decided some things were better than sex. Found out a few days later I was wrong. Even before it got bad, it felt like a crime to sully her body with mine. She was TV pretty and I had a face for radio. Still, she grabbed the muscles on the back of my arms in bed and told me, "It's a good thing you're sick. A healthy version of you would kill me." Grateful for the lie, I'd think, "You beautiful fool, you gorgeous, beautiful fool." Even the surgeries and the treatments didn't change her mind, nor the scars, nor the tubes they put in my chest with the plastic ends I'd taped together so they wouldn't click during sex. At my most hideous, she made me feel beautiful. It would bury me to look the doctor in the eye and tell him how she stayed through the years of dialysis, how she sat with me for hours on end, that somehow, impossibly, I was less alone during that frightful period than any other point in my life. Because then I'd have to tell him how I fucked it up. Dying turned out to be easier than living. I became an expert at the first and forgot how to do the second. I didn't know how to be a person anymore, to take the myopic self-importance of daily life seriously. She started working at a bookstore, a far cry from her pre-graduation dreams. We were adults in waiting, her with her English degree, me with my scars, neither of us ready to rejoin the world. She ended things 4 years in. It was the right decision. "I wish I could meet you 10 years from now," she told me when she left. The implication being we'd have our lives together. I'd have to tell the doctor she was wrong. It would take far longer for me. I'd fall in another pit as soon as I crawled my way out of that one. She had a life, an adventure. She made beautiful things. No one was less surprised than I was. I felt the vinegared pride that comes with watching someone you deeply admire outgrow you. I survived. It was the only thing I was really good at. I quit smoking shortly after the breakup. Couldn't stand the smell anymore. I'd fallen in love with her like a Pavlovian experiment, one smoke break at a time. Whenever I lit up, I ate. I sparked up a few more times through the years. For a night, a weekend, one whole summer, I'd sit outside and wait for something to make me feel beautiful again. I quit cigarettes for good 5 years after she left. Stopped craving 10 years after that, mostly. But the damage never goes away. What it does to your lungs, your heart, it takes years. Stunted alveoli, a part of you asleep in your chest. I stopped the doctor mid-exam. I lied. I didn't tell you because I didn't want my insurance rates to go up. But I want to be honest. I want an honest relationship. I've smoked. I've burned. "How long?" he asked. "Maybe 4 years, when I was young." I expect him to look at me like an idiot. Like, how could you ever do such a thing, you stupid boy? Instead, he says, 4 years isn't a long time. We don't need to add it to the file. Tobacco free. Then he makes a little mark on his paper like he's drawing an X over my entire life. Thank you.
Wow. Amazing, Barlow, both funny and poignant all at the same time, which is not easy to do. Beautiful work. Thank you. And nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for being here tonight at FBOMB. Barlow Adams. Next, Brad Rose. Brad Rose was born and raised in Los Angeles and lives in Boston. He is the author of 6 collections of poetry and flash fiction, Word in Edgewise, Lucky Animals, No Wait, I Can Explain, Pink X-Ray Detonations, and Momentary Turbulence. His prose poetry collection, I wouldn't say that exactly, is forthcoming in 2025. His website is bradrosepoetry.com. Brad Rose.
Thank you, Francine. And a quick thanks to Paul Beckman for founding this incredible venue. I also want to say, having gone about halfway through these readers, that this is extraordinary. These people are unbelievably good. And of course, I'm not qualified to say that, but I say it nonetheless. I'm really, really, really impressed. I'm going to read 4 pieces. They're 1 paragraph each. And after, following these folks, I was just going to embarrass myself. In any case, the first one's called Incident. I was just phoning it in, like I was on automatic, when I realized maybe I'm on the wrong planet. Of course, happiness depends on your longitude as well as your latitude, but isn't that always the way? Ever since I finished my treatment, I've been rehearsing my mind-reading skills and listening to the fumes as often as I can. After all, why lower your standards? In fact, whenever I carry my crossbow, I don't like to mess around. Not since the incident in the checkout line at that big box store. At least I gave everybody a warning. Well, almost everybody. Not bad at all. I take back everything I said about those giant jellyfish. These days, a lot of things happen fast but slow, so like a freak accident, it's hard to know whether you're awash in a bubbly hubbub or merely inundated by a hoodoo brouhaha. Normally, I like to eliminate all my unnecessary synapses and trim down to bantam weight. Well, that explains a lot, said Comrade Milquetoast, whose sole claim to fame is in a reasonably sized collection of Dayglow mood rings and a couple of Stalinist houseplants. After the police arrived with their pesky batons, I explained that we were using only the good bacteria and that there was nothing to worry about, except perhaps for experimental woolly-bully chili cheese dogs. Let me be the judge of that, said the first cop with the 2 gold front teeth, as he grabbed one of the tube steaks out of my 3-fingered hand and took a slobbery, monstrous bite. Not bad, he smiled. Not bad at all. Summer burb. I live in a nice tree-lined neighborhood. Everyone deserves a roof over their debt, even if it gives them a sprain. Today, the sun sinks low like in one of those mid-century cowboy dinosaur movies, as the incessant refrigerators scuffle with the relentless air conditioners. Of course, in Valhalla, you have to learn to pace yourself if you hope to catnap at hypersonic speeds. Life is different than the one we were promised in business school. In this one clothes-horse town, I try to keep my monochromatic belly aching to myself, even if the umbrella fish look lonely as an open window and the neighbors gaily combust against the backdrop of their Victorian wainscoting. Have you noticed lately how the future looks dubious? Like a dubious folk hero? Not tall enough to be noticed, but not short enough, but short enough to be discreet. No, thank you, blushed my administrative assistant. I'm much too ticklish in this neck of the woods. The last piece is called Even Numbers. My rehab doctor says we live in a world of quantification, so I've been tallying my bee stings just to be on the safe side. I also recently purchased a pair of rattlesnake boxing gloves, which came with a patented anti-venom protective coating and a phantom limb with a money-back guarantee. I mean, how fast can electricity travel? Because today is the ugliest part of the week, I'll be giving myself another ad hoc haircut and straightening my imaginary cummerbund. Sure, it'll require nearly superhuman concentration, but that's a lot better than facing a circular firing squad, even one firing rubber bullets. Of course, everything is water resistant, including water, but who, apart from a blind zebra, is prepared to testify that the snow leopard can change its spots? In fact, last week at the Penny Pincher Wellness Spa, I reminded my masseuse that just like the US Mint prints $2 bills, there are an infinite number of even numbers. She glared at me with her one good eye and said, "Sure thing, Mr. Big Spender, but if I were you, I wouldn't count on it." Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. And I'm going to allow you that little bit of self-deprecation because obviously, you know, I think I said to Brad a few weeks ago that I think he's invented a new genre called stand-up prose poetry. So, yeah, beautiful, beautiful work as
Thank you.
always.
Thanks so much.
Really, your mind just amazes me, Brad. So thank you for reading for us tonight, Brad Rose. Okay, next. Grab onto your seats. We're going to hear from Cindy Rosmus. They'll say you weren't warned. Cindy Rosmus, originally hails from the Ironbound section of Newark, New Jersey, once voted the unfriendliest city on the planet. She talks like anybody from West Side Story, from West Side Story and everybody from Saturday Night Fever. Her stories have been published in places like Shotgun Honey, the Rye Whiskey Review, and Rock in a Hard Place. She's the editor and art director of Yellow Mama. Cindy Rosmus.
Thanks, Francine. And I did post the link to Yellow Mama in the beginning of the chat, which I usually forget to do. I got 2 flash pieces to read. Hope I don't go over. You can always cut me off, you know. The first, and they're totally different from each other. I mean, you can't, they're not like together. This first one is called Rent Lady. Melody? Bingo Joe said. Who's she? That Cal dude, Georgie said, who is buying this building, except he's a chick. He looked anxious. Where is she? In the foyer, there we were. Georgie, our boss, in his flowered shorts, all Jimmy Buffett. Bingo Joe and me, the soon-to-be fired supers, or so Georgie thought. What's so funny, he asked me. You went out to get beer, Bingo Joe said. Did you see her come in? No, I said. That blonde, Barbie-like bitch in the blue suit. You see her with eyes to match, I bet. I hadn't looked into them like Bobby G had. George, she called him. Smiling, he hadn't corrected her. Bobby G, who'd been right there when 2 tenants were found dead. Both chicks. Looney Tunes hanging from the shower bar in 1E. Kissy-faced around in a vanilla bath in 2D. For hours, the whole way it smelled like wet vanilla wafers. I don't get it, Georgie said. Melody texted she just pulled up outside. The 12-pack was downstairs on our kitchen table, getting warm. I wanted to go crack one so bad, but I couldn't leave this. I flew all the way from Florida to meet her, Georgie whined. Like the love of his life, it stood him up. And she ghosted me. She's got to be somewhere, Bingo Joe said. Up in 2B, I thought, Bobby G's place. How had he done it this time? Or maybe she was still alive. If there had been screams, every tenant would be down here, eagle for blood, ghouls, everyone. I keep texting, Georgie said, but no answer. If her phone was upstairs, would we hear it? Too soon to call the cops, Bingo Joe said. Just a few hours, tops. Again, I thought of that beer. By now, our cat Noodles would be sitting on top of it. Georgie's eyes narrowed. Why are you so quiet? He asked me. I'm thinking, I said. Somebody had left here right before me. A lady. Nobody I knew. Kind of dressed up, got in a blue car. What kind of car? But the new owner, I tried not to smile at that word, was a guy. I jumped as the lobby door opened behind me. Like you said. I wasn't sure. What's up? Bobby G standing behind me gave me chills. But why would she leave? George suddenly turned and bolted outside. Shrugging, Bingo Joe followed him. Wearily, Bobby G lowered himself onto the stairs. Like whatever he'd done, it sucked up all his energy. His face might have been flushed. I could use a beer, he said, even a warm one. For the first time ever, I sat down beside him. It was a done deal, he said. She wanted this place bad, but not you two. He edged closer. You two'd be sleeping in the park, cats in shelters. Downstairs, I pictured Noodle stretching, yawning on top of the beers. You owe me, Bobby G said in a dreamy voice. Wanted, he'd said. Outside, Georgie and Bingo Joe searched for a faceless woman in an imaginary car. A blue Beamer, I should have said. Nah, I said, smiling. Actually, you owe me. And the other one more. This is different. This is called Get Up and Dance. Like musical chairs, but in reverse. Each time a good song comes on, get up and dance. Like a party, but not really. You can't remember when you got here. Not sure where you are. All you know is you gotta get up and dance. Outside, the sky is charcoal gray, like it's going to storm, but it never does. Inside, it's bright and disco-y, but with no sequin ball. A guy who looks familiar weaves in and out of the crowd of maniacal dancers, people of all ages who you don't know. All you know is they've got to get up and dance. Judy in Disguise plays the most often. That 60s tune by John Fred and those geeky playboys. Judy and those stupid glasses. It came out when you were a kid. But were you ever a kid? All you remember is dancing to it. Vaguely, you recall mean nun teachers drinking a foul soda called Tab. But now, all you know is this jumping up and twisting around like you've got so much energy, as old as you are, but maybe you're really still a kid. The dancing plague back in the Middle Ages was a real thing. People just couldn't stop. Sometimes they collapsed. And sometimes you try not to think they died. Born, as the familiar-looking guy walks past you, the next song starts. Born to Be Alive, a classic disco masterpiece. As you jump up, you wonder if you're dead. He half smiles. How else could you keep this up? All the pain you're in, with no memory of how it started. A car accident? A leap off a building? Your head feels like your neck is twisted at an impossible angle. Did you hang yourself? Judy again, in that disguise with those glasses. You haven't sat down since you were born to be alive. A dance marathon, you recall, in the 70s back at Liberty State College when there was a sequin ball. 36 hours, but I couldn't last 36 minutes, you told the sponsors. Till now. They shoot horses, don't they? People dance for their lives. Desperate Gloria half-carried Sailor on her back during the Derby. His heart gave out. When were yours? The song stopped suddenly. As you sink down, you recall an ER bed behind a curtain. A gown that barely covered your ass. A guy with a familiar face pulling a blankie over yours. Not. No! You screamed, but no one heard you. No! You screamed, louder as he shoved you headfirst into that drawer. And Judy starts again, still in disguise, but without glasses this time. Because they were never Judy's. They're yours. It's always been you with disguise. Smiling, familiar face gets closer. Around you, it's even grayer and darker than outside. Though they're all still dancing, the others watch. Your chest swells and swells till you can't bear it anymore. You go down. And just like in the song, he takes your glasses. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy, and you certainly delivered. Cindy Rosmus, wonderful. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Beth Sherman. Beth Sherman's writing has been published in more than 100 literary magazines, and she's got something in Flash Boulevard tomorrow. So look for Flash Boulevard tomorrow, including Flash Frog, Gone Lawn, Tiny Molecules, 100-Word Story, Victor Dring, and Many Genres. Her work is featured in Best Microfictions 2024. She's also a multiple pushcard Best Small Fictions and Best Event nominee. She can be reached on X, Blue Sky, or Instagram at bsherm.36. Beth Sherman.
Well, Cindy is a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. I'm really happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having me, Francine. I'm actually going to be reading the story that is going to appear in Flash Boulevard tomorrow. So here's a sneak peek of it. It is called Backseat Girls. Mariah Carey arrives at our old high school with a personal trainer, her ex-boyfriend, and a camera crew in tow. She's wearing black leggings and a rhinestone tank top with a butterfly sewn on the front, under a faux fur jacket. Her tawny curls reach her hamstrings. "BB," she cries as I step forward to greet her. "You look fabulous." I don't, actually. There's a toothpaste stain on my sweater, and my thighs strain against my jeans. But Mariah was always good at seeing past the actual to the possible. "How long has it been?" she asks. I don't remember. The last time we saw each other, we both had poofy 80s hair. I met my husband because of Mariah. He was behind me on the checkout line at Costco when All I Want for Christmas started playing, and I turned to him and said, "I know her. We were best friends in high school." A good opening line. It got his attention. We laugh about it now. But sometimes I think, what if the song on the loudspeakers that day was Last Christmas? 27 years of my life would be erased. Maybe I'd be someone else. Boring is good, I tell myself. We have our health, 8 months of savings, a tiny garden in the backyard, 2 kids who don't hate us. That should be enough. To want more is greedy. Only when I watch Mariah perform at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, in a cherry red dress fishtailing to her ankles, surrounded by handsome men dressed as soldiers and kids wearing angel wings, I get so mad I throw the remote at the TV and shift the screen. Mad at myself. Mariah can't help being an icon. She was going to be a singer, and I was going to be a writer. I wrote stories about weird stuff. A taxidermist who stuffs her husband, a jealous lake monster, an artist who has no hands. A couple of them got published in obscure journals, but stories aren't enough. They don't get you college teaching gigs. They don't get made into Netflix movies. For that, you need to have the stories collected and printed in a book. You need to win contests sponsored by independent publishers. I never won. So I decided to write a novel about a girl with a famous friend from high school. I shopped it around for 2 years. No one was interested. It made me feel stupid and small. The whole time I was thinking, does what you do matter when no one's watching? I could tell you stories. I could tell you about all the times we cut class, or how when Dennis Apatista asked me to prom instead of her, she cried for 2 days, even though she'd broken up with him in February. Those things happen, but they don't count anymore. What counts is the music, which will be around after all of us are gone. It's not her fault she's glamorous, that her face is unlined, her chest as perky as the high school cheerleaders we used to make fun of, her voice all honey and gumption. Today, she's making another documentary. This is the What Life Was Like in High School part. I had a starring role in that. I used to write her English papers, date her leftovers, cover for her when she went into the city to audition. I thought maybe she'd get a gig as an understudy in an off-Broadway musical. I never expected her to become a pop superstar, someone known by their first name. I was the one who nicknamed her Mimi. It sounded French, glamorous. I renamed myself, too. BB is way better than Barbara. Nothing exciting ever happens to a girl named Barbara. She lives in a 3-bedroom ranch near the house where she grew up. Doesn't leave New York State. Works for the school district, answering phones, filing paperwork. Sings in the church choir. Group vocals, never a solo. Shares a glass of wine or 3 with her friends from the neighborhood. Strings her regrets together like charms on a bracelet. They take pictures of Mariah in our social studies class, by her locker, sitting on a table in the cafeteria, shooting baskets in the gym. Let's do one in the bus, Mariah says. We used to sit in the back row in our 2 short skirts, smoking, the boys throwing hooded glances at us, wanting what they couldn't have. though it's not the same yellow bus. It could be. Same ripped vinyl, same stuffy smell, same windows that won't open. Mariah feels it too. Remember when we wrote Mimi and Bibi forever on the back of the seat in front of us? She says, I remember all of it, being young, pretty, desirable, hopeful, like a wild coat that couldn't stop running. She grabs my hand, tilts her head forward so her hair cascades across her shoulders. Out the sealed window, the sky is tie-dyed, white clouds skidding into blue. Pop, pop, the cameras trill.
Thank you, Beth Sherman. And you can read that story on Flash Boulevard tomorrow if you just go to just Google Flash Boulevard and it'll come up. Or it'll be it's on my Facebook page. I share it quite a bit. So thank you, Beth Sherman. Lovely to have you here, and that was a great story. Okay, we're coming down to the end now, just two more readers. And we're hearing from, I don't know, the other side of the world. This is putting the global in FBOMB Global. Okay, so we're going to hear from Sandra Arnold. Sandra Arnold's 8 books include her 2024, and she's to the antidote to Cindy, by the way, and you'll see what I mean. Include her 2024 flash fiction collection, Below Ground, and novella in flash, The Bones of the Story, Where the Wind Blows, The Ash, the Well, and the Bluebell, Soul Etchings. Her short fiction has been published internationally and received nominations for the Best Small Fictions, Best Microfictions, and the Pushcart Prize. She has a PhD in creative writing from Central Queensland University, Australia. And I didn't mean antidote, I meant the antithesis. And you'll see. Sandra Arnold.
Thank you, Francine. And it's a lovely way to start 2025, being on the Flash Bomb. So thank you for inviting me. I'm reading just one story, and it's called A Clash of Colour. My brother parked the car opposite the house with the red door that used to be grey. The treeless street looked even grimmer than I recalled. I glanced at the rows of identical houses with their grey pebble-dash walls, trying to remember the neighbours who once occupied them. Women in pinnies and headscarves scrubbing their front steps, sweeping their concrete paths, men rolling drunk up those paths. Sounds of yelling and slapping, immaculately dressed children with polished shoes. I watched a girl with blonde plaits and a green gingham dress coming out the front gate. She walked to the end of the street, then gripped the horizontal iron bar of a neighbour's fence and swung herself over and around it. She stood up, straightened her dress, and hopped up the pavement, carefully avoiding the cracks between the paving stones. I whispered, "Step on a crack, break your mother's back." My brother laughed. "You remember that rhyme? I'd forgotten it." "Well, boys didn't play that game," I reminded him. "You played football with your friends." "Where did you hide your friends?" he said. "In my pocket." The girl in the green gingham dress took a stone from her pocket, held it to her cheek, and whispered a name. When she reached school, she would hide Bridget in their secret place in the playground. She would spend every break and lunchtime making up stories with Bridget, put her back behind the wall when the bell rang, and then collect her at home time. The story she and Bridget were working on now was about a man climbing up a ladder beside the grey door to repair a broken slate on the roof. He didn't see the blonde girl peering at him from behind her bedroom curtains. He didn't know about the loose rung at the top of the ladder. But the girl knew. and Bridget knew. All they needed now was to work out the ending of the story. I wanted to run after the girl and tell her she would survive the teacher who called her stupid, the classmates who chased her with worms and hid dead mice in her desk, the father who made her nose bleed. I wanted to tell her she would fly so high that there was no chance of her ending up like the pinched-faced women on this street. My brother looked at his watch and nudged me. How long are we going to stay in this godforsaken street while you stare at that red door? I didn't answer. He shrugged. Yeah, I know, but not every day was grim, eh? Some were okay, right? I shook my head. So why did you want to come back here after all this time? Just to relive those memories? He gave an exasperated sigh. Why not focus on what you've achieved? I'll bet you never imagined any of that back then. I watched the girl hop to the end of the street. Just before she disappeared round the corner, I waved goodbye. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful, Sandra. Like I could just listen to you all night. So beautiful. Sandra Arnold, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Or tomorrow. It's like, what time is it there? Like, it's tomorrow sometime, right? You're in New Zealand, I believe. Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. Okay, our final reader. Paul, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, so we can't see you, but we can hear you, we can appreciate you. And this is Paul Beckman reading, who is, as Brad Rose mentioned earlier, the creator of the reading. We used to have it in at the KGB bar, and then after COVID, Paul moved it to Zoom, and it continues on Zoom. And well, a great debt to Paul for creating this wonderful reading. So Paul Beckman has 8 books published. His last was Becoming Mirsky, and it was a finalist in the Independent Book Contest. Since then, he and Zvi Sesling have cooperated on a collection, 40 Stories, wonderful collection. The wonderful Paul Beckman.
Thank you. And this is a hard act to follow this group. It's a pleasure. Cobwebs. Mirsky called his wife from the payphone at the airport. He hadn't used one in years and was surprised at the 50 cents it cost. Hell, he thought, it seems like yesterday they went to a dime. At his age, 52, yesterday the Mirsky could have been 2 years or 15 years. Elaine wasn't home or was on the phone, so he left a message to his own voice, who said to leave one and to his own voice who said to leave one, and whoever was calling would be called back promptly, and thanks for calling. He told Elaine that on the way to work, something was gnawing at him. And when he listened to 10 of his 18 messages, he saw that he had several dozen emails waiting to be returned. He realized what it was. I felt an itch to get away for a few days, he told their answering machine, and I'm at the airport about to scratch it. I'll be home shortly, after I clear the cobwebs, he went on, and can cope better. But right now, I'm about to board a plane. I left my cell phone and pager at work, and we'll see you soon. Love you, he ended with. Mirsky slept all the way to Toronto, while the detective he hired took up his surveillance of Elaine to find out who she'd been cheating with. When Mirsky returned, he got more than an earful from 2 people.
Did you want to read another, Paul?
I have, yes,
Please do.
two very short and one moderate.
Absolutely.
Enough guilt to go around. I'm guilty. I can't justify my actions. I was wrong when the police came and asked me if I saw my father-in-law on the day in question. I said no. I was not at home that day. I was home that day. I am his only witness who knows he didn't pull the robbery. We spent most of the day together, and all of the time in question, from noon till 3, playing chutes and ladders. We were smoking dope, so having a World Series of a kids game, best 4 out of 7, seemed like a reasonable and great idea. I caught him cheating when I went to the cupboard for some Twizzlers, and that's why I'm going to let him go to jail instead of telling the truth as to where his whereabouts were. He can't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I never told him about seeing him move my marker, and I'm getting even. The thing is, I was stoned at the time, and I'm pretty sure he moved the marker. I should have won the series, but it turned out that after the event, he broke our 3-3 tie and became the world champion. And for that reason alone, I say guilty. And we're going to end this with Jungle Dreams. It was a fix-up by friends who both thought they knew me, but I was good at hiding my secrets, my drug habit, my lying, my hatreds, my 4-year-old away from my family while I was in the service, 2 of which were on the base in town, that no one knew I was there, 2 I can't talk about because if I talk about the migraines, they'll come back from thinking about a life in the jungle, hiding in a cave, and coming out to slit a throat and cut off an arm and toss it in the fire, and finally getting to eat something besides plants. And yes, I gagged, but I hauled the meat off the bone, carried it around until I couldn't stand the hunger anymore, and I reached in my bag and came out with a handful of meat, and this time I gagged less, and the next time even less, and after that, I could eat anything without gagging. So I didn't tell my fix-up about those days, or my black days, or thoughts, and I went with her to her family Seder, which was in a restaurant, because no one had a house big enough to hold 70-plus people. I could think of with all these useless uncles and aunts, was how many funerals I'd have to go to in the years ahead if I married this woman. And yesterday, I went to the last aunt's funeral, and unlike my family, they all liked each other and were genuine and didn't hold grudges or stop speaking to one another. And the next month, one of the cousins died, and I told my wife I couldn't go to any more funerals, and she didn't understand me. She said, "I don't understand you." And I said, "I know you don't. No one does. And I don't understand myself. But this is who I am." And she looked at me with tears running down her cheeks and said, "You talk in your sleep. I know more about you than you think." And I said, "I have dreams and nightmares of things that aren't true. And I remember them all in the morning, but I don't know where they come from." "That must be a heavy burden," she said. And I told her it was no longer a burden because I was used to these wild dreams. "Just tell me this," she asked. "Did you or did you not live in the jungle?" "Of course not," I said. "I've never ever been to a jungle." "Why do you ask?" "Because you talk in your sleep a lot about the jungle." "I know I have jungle dreams," I lied, "but I don't know where they came from, except maybe the news." And she said, "Thank God," and hugged me. And I hugged her back, knowing that once again, I dodged the bullet for now. Thank you.
Oh, Paul, you always just kill it, don't you? That's amazing. Wonderful. Paul Beckman. And again, thank you for creating this wonderful FBOMB series. I was just so happy to listen to everybody tonight. And also just a gorgeous audience in the Zoom room. I appreciate you all being here. And I want to thank our readers, Zvi Sesling, Ron Bass, Ellen Weeren, Claudia Monpere, Patricia, Quintana, Bidar, Barlow Adams, Brad Rose, Cindy Rosmus, Beth Sherman, Sandra Arnold, and of course, Paul Beckman. And look for these wonderful writers all over the net, all over everywhere. I'm going to turn off the recording, and if you feel like staying around in the Zoom room to maybe get off mute and schmooze a little, you're more than welcome. But in any event, I want to thank everybody for being here, and drive safely. Francine Witte in New York City. Good night.